Chapter 18, Growth of Rural Industry by Brian Catalano.
And Robbie Desousa. So the essential questions that we're going to teach you throughout the discussion are: how and why did rural industry intensify in the 18th century?
What role did female workers have on rural industry in Europe?
And what influence did the rural industry have on the Industrial Revolution? So it all began with rural workers with little to no land. This influenced industry to develop in those areas. Urban capitalists were willing to give workers jobs, knowing that the workers would accept very low wages. This essentially sparked the cotton industry. It was mainly peasants and urban workers using hand labor and tools. It was interesting because peasants had always been self-sufficient and made their own clothing, processed foods, and other necessities. So they were exceptionally well at the crafts that urban capitalists were hiring them to do. The way the cotton industry was managed was through a process called the putting out system, which was very important. What happens was the merchant capitalists would put out the raw materials needed to process the products, which would then be made by the worker in their own houses and then returned to the merchant with a finished product.
The life of a rural textile worker was pretty common since the textile industry employed the most people in Europe until about the 19th century. A rural worker lived in a small cottage with tiny windows and little space. The cottage could also be served as a workshop, kitchen, and a bedroom. Handroom leaving was practiced by all rural families, anyone who was capable of working. The man's job was to operate the loom and also was reserved for the head of the family, while women and children worked to prepare the loom. The work of about 4 to 5 spinners was needed to keep one weaver steadily employed, and this attracted many wives and daughters who took on spinning work in their free time. Many harsh and controversial relationships formed between workers and employers due to accusations of stolen goods. Female workers had particularly hard conditions, while men could earn up to 3 times more in wages. Also, this caused problems in agricultural calendar, like during spring and summertime, which led to shortages in thread, which caused many merchants to depend on the time travel and when the crop would be due. This also forced lowest possible wages upon the workers. In this quote by Daniel Defoe, "But if this man's wife and children can at the same time get employment, if at next door or at the next village there lives a clothier, or a baymaker, or a stuff or drugget weaver, the manufacturer sends to the poor woman combed wool or carded wool every week to spin, and she gets 8 pence or 9 pence a day at home." Basically what they're saying is that anyone at home now, like the wife or the children, can go out and they can do stuff and they can get more goods from the manufacturer and they can be making their own money instead of working at home or being in the home all day.
So in general, conditions were very difficult for female workers. Men could work more hours for a wage increase, while women working at any amount of hours would still be subjected to the same very low wage. McKay actually specifically states that in England's Yorkshire wool industry, a male wool comber earned a good wage of 12 shillings or more a week, while a female spinner could hope for only 3.5 shillings. So the numbers right there are obviously showing the drastic difference between the two. Because of the woman's terribly low wages, specifically single or widowed female spinners were stricken with terrible poverty. This poverty was long-lasting because of merchant capitalists' inability to realize the true problem of low wages for workers. They believed that because the workers were scattered across large plains and countrysides, that they were harder to command and direct. This angst and conflict between specifically female weavers and merchant capitalists would go on to be a leading influence in the upcoming Industrial Revolution. And here's a comment from an anonymous source. "We live at our pleasure and take at our delight. We heapeth up richest treasure, great store, which we get by gripping and grinding the poor. And this is a way to fill up our purse, although we get it with many a curse." This pretty much means it was actually a song that like workers sung in bars, like to show their displeasure with working conditions.
This was a breakthrough in the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was a shift that occurred as families in northwestern Europe were focusing on earning wages instead of producing goods for household consumption, and this reduced their economic self-sufficiency to increase their ability to purchase these consumer goods. Um, the women's role in the household became very controversial due to making their own wages. But when the women made their own wages, sometimes they couldn't even decide where their money went to because their money had to go to the earnings and the bare necessities of the household. Um, Europe steps up work pace and directed labor of women and children from the production of these goods towards earning more wages. The cities then get a rise in female employment outside of the home. Um, Even in a time of low wages, the poor could purchase more goods by working harder, increasing the number of wage workers. The breadwinner, or the male or head of the house, was expected to earn enough to support a whole family, which included women and children.
And here are MLA cited sources.